I'm joined by Harry Litman of the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Make sure you all subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Harry, I want to talk about this order that was issued this past week by Judge Tanya Chutkan in the Washington, D.C. federal criminal case against Donald Trump for his attempt to overthrow the results of the 2020 election. The mandate issued from the Supreme Court, sending the case back to federal Judge Tanya Chutkan after the Supreme Court made that disastrous absolute immunity ruling. Judge Tanya Chutkan immediately last week issued order after order denying some frivolous motions by Donald Trump and setting a status conference immediately. She's like, I want to hear from the parties in light of what the Supreme Court just ruled on absolute immunity. Where do we go from here? You know, people were speculating, is there going to be this mini evidentiary hearing, a mini trial going to be taking place? Then special counsel Jack Smith did something very interesting this week. You know, he filed a stipulation. The one time we see Jack Smith seemingly to agree with Trump's lawyers on something. I mean, Trump's lawyers want to delay this thing forever, but special counsel Jack Smith's like, wait a minute, we are still formulating our position and reading what the Supreme Court ruled to see where we go from here. So both special counsel Jack Smith and Donald Trump and Trump's lawyers said, yes, you scheduled the status conference coming up soon, but let's continue the briefing on this. Let's continue the conference. We need a little bit more time. And then Judge Chutkan issued the order. It was an unopposed motion for an extension of time by special counsel Jack Smith. It was granted. The joint status report previously due by August 9th, 2024, that was Friday, is now due August 30th, 2024. The status conference previously scheduled for August 16th, 2024 is continued until September 5th, 2024 at 10 a.m. in courtroom 9, signed by Judge Tanya Chutkan. Harry, I'm going to toss it over to you in a second. Also want to mention, though, this is also consistent, though, with special counsel Jack Smith not seeking to expedite the briefing before the 11th Circuit in the Judge Eileen Cannon disastrous order that she made. And I want to hear from you now, but it seems like special counsel Jack Smith, the DOJ, the overall position is things ain't happening until the election. We don't need to push anything fast. There may be internal disagreements, but maybe we just let Donald Trump talk for a little bit and he'll talk himself into more crimes or something. What say you, Harry Litman?
Yes and no. So look, I do think on the 11th Circuit, and we've talked about this, there had been a push before to get things, with other cases too, including January 6th, do them quickly if they could. They didn't quite want to say, so the people have the information before the election. That seemed to be a little bit political for the DOJ, so they just said public interest. And now, as you say, this is what's happening in the 11th Circuit. I think this unopposed motion of yesterday is different. First, it's the first time ever that Smith has been out front saying, give us time. And of course, Trump didn't oppose it. But if you read it carefully in that first sentence, he talks about having to get the views of other components. They have been 40 days since that Supreme Court order came down, and they knew what they would have to do. I'm here to tell you, 40 days is a light year in DOJ time. You can get together a position in way more complicated cases in 40 days, and they do. The stakeholders come together. They thrash it out. Usually the Solicitor General makes a ruling, and maybe part of what's going on here is who's got the call. Is it Smith or is it someone else, where in fact is Merrick Garland and maybe Lisa Monaco. But I don't think it was, we'll just let him go, we don't care now. I think reading Smith carefully, it says that something was a little abnormal or is really going on and maybe roiled within the halls of the Department of Justice. And you're a former lawyer. 3 weeks. That's a bit of a weird. That's like, we're almost done. We better not have too little time because we can't ask for another extension. But it feels like there's been a lot of back and forth and they just couldn't quite bottom line. That tells you a lot, right? First, it tells you that other divisions, other than the special counsel, on whom I'm thinking of, civil rights, the criminal division, maybe security division, maybe even the civil division know that they're going to have to live with the positions that the department through Jack Smith takes now before Chutkan. But still, it doesn't take that long to hammer out your basic position. Now, the court was pretty muddled here, and they really, basically, they wouldn't, bottom line, and say anything Trump did was unofficial. They're always giving him an argument. So one thing that might take a long time is going through literally act after act, paragraph in the indictment, act after act, and try to figure it out. But again, they knew that as of July 1st, and 40 days later, they're asking for 3 more weeks. It's unusual. I'll put it that way. And Smith's motion does have this little, ever so slight mention of the other components out there who, as opposed to, say, him.
Harry, what would be the process, though, as you synthesize the Supreme Court's order? And look, there will certainly be some acts in that indictment that are even called out by the Supreme Court, ones that I would never even think should get the presumption, like Justice Roberts saying that when Donald Trump speaks to the DOJ and orders them to do things, you're entitled to absolute immunity because, of course, that's core functions or official conduct.
Right.
I'm like, that's illegal. What are you talking about? That goes against the entire ethos of the separation between the Justice Department and
that's the Navy SEALs hypo. You use your Navy SEALs to shoot someone. That's okay. It really is. But sorry, go ahead.
So is the process, though, now, would a superseding indictment need to be filed where you scrub the other acts, or can you proceed based on the indictment but just not introduce acts into the trial? Do you have to bring a superseding that removes, usually superseding supersedes with more, but here it's going to be reseeding with less?
Yeah. There's going to have to be a superseding indictment because we know it's not simply evidence. And of course, the court has made it clear that you can't even introduce certain evidence, but it is counts. It is stories. There are basically 5 separate stories in that indictment. Trump trying to push on state legislators, trying to have the phony electors, trying to influence the DOJ, trying to have the Mike Pence thing, and then setting loose the marauders. And at least we know that third one, as you say, DOJ is going to be gone. And it feels like parts of the Pence, fourth story are going to be gone. And so he is going to need to trim things down. But that's what the process that is just beginning now, September 5th, goes toward. That's the argument back and forth. Chutkan makes determinations. Now she says, here's what you've got to do. And now here comes the new indictment. And by the way, whatever they do, there's going to be a huge fight from Trump. He wants to make sure nothing happens before the election, at least. And this is why I've always been in the camp. For a while it was a minority camp. I think it's now the majority camp that there ain't going to be no mini evidentiary trial hearing here. And that's a little bit of a fool's errand. But there will eventually, assume that Trump loses. If he wins, not all bets are off. All bets are over because he just scuttles the prosecution. But assume that he loses, there will be March, June, whatever. The timing matters a little less. A slimmed down indictment that probably will have the blessing of the Supreme Court in the sense that Trump will challenge it. And because it's immunity, he'll be able to go up and down again. Now that November has clearly is coming and going without making any sort of headway, there's still these cases aren't going away, and this one in particular isn't going away. It will for sure, though, be trimmed down.
Donald Trump's always a great counter indicator. If he says something's going to crash, it's going to rise. If he says it's going to rise, it's going to crash. Yeah. So when Donald Trump was pushing for all of these cases to be delayed, perhaps the Department of Justice and the various prosecutors just should have went along with it and said, all right, great, delay it. And this is what I mean by that. is that when these cases get delayed, I mean, also you have the rise of Vice President Kamala Harris and all these historic events and Governor Walz and all of these things, but we now are focusing on how bizarre and dangerous Trump is when these cases go on. I think because of the glacial failures in the corporate media, they don't know how to cover the cases the way we cover it on Talking Feds and on the MeidasTouch network. So what they do is, oh, Donald Trump's out, let's play his press conference. It's so unfair. Right. They're treating me so bad. Mar-a-Lago's valued at this. The judge is unfair. And he's actually able to stay on message with those things. So actually, you know, my own view, and this has evolved, and it's evolved, I think, unfortunately, because how bad the corporate media covered the trial. It's like, look, push the trials out. We have the sentencing in New York on September 18th. He's already a convicted felon. Now let's just hear what a lunatic this person is from now into the election. I'll give you the final word.
Well, it's a really good point because, you know, there was a sort of a sense, it felt to me a few weeks ago, and the people were like, all the criminal cases have kind of gone away, huh? He's beat them. But that's because the battle that people were focused on was for them to actually come to market by November. They are still developing. That Chutkan hearing is going to be in the headlines, and you know, the new Arizona case, the sentencing on September 18th and the like. So they're not going away. And as you say, each one serves as a reminder of the wickedness that Donald Trump promises to redouble should he become president again.
Harry Litman, Talking Feds YouTube, on their way to 500,000 subscribers. Your numbers are through the roof on the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Everybody, make sure you go there now, subscribe there. Subscribe to this channel as well. But of course, if you're subscribed here, subscribe to Talking Feds. Harry, thank you as always.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.